Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMALOT. And this week, we are going over UFC Vegas 59, headlined by a light heavyweight bout between Jamal Hill and Thiago Santos. Big test here for Jamal Hill. And if he's able to pass it, he'll definitely be able to assert himself into title talks, possibly in the next fight or two, especially because in my opinion, Thiago Santos probably in that championship gatekeeper status at this point in time. I did have a guest fall out short notice on me, but luckily I found a great guy to replace him with. He is right now the number one seed or the number one ranked guy in the high stakes $500 Lock of the Night challenge that we have going on for the full year here. He has about 4 more months that he needs to close out, or 5 more months, I should say, to close out the game here. Very tough task, but he has a pretty solid lead over the rest of the crew. Welcome in, my guy, GordoGambles. Gordo, what's going on, my brother?
Hey man, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to finally be able to meet face to face and do these videos with you. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, what an intro! A lot of pressure going in on this $500 high stake challenge now, man.
Hey, every prediction you make on this stream better hit. Otherwise, you're
Better, yep.
trash. You suck. You're garbage, right?
Never invited back again.
Exactly. You're blacklisted pretty much. That's how the comment section rolls nowadays. It seems like you got to be perfect or you suck. But I guarantee you guys that Gordo will definitely be giving you guys his best takes and a damn good prediction as well in all these fights because he is very sharp in terms of his ability to call fights, props, money line, all that stuff. Not to mention his DraftKings. I know over here in Ontario, we kind of got robbed of DraftKings. So I'm not sure how you've been staying busy in terms of DraftKings. So I might as well lead it off with that question. Like, have you found other ways to take advantage of your DraftKings skills, or are you just kind of just giving out information and not playing anything?
You know what, man? It's been such a hard adaptation because that was what I was basing a lot of my content on. A lot of my man hours are going towards that. I've kind of shifted towards the betting side of things because the betting was legalized here and it had become a lot easier for me to take advantage of that. But man, it's been a really tough change. I think that I'm still able to play a few lineups. I'm still able to enter the Ironman, still able to do a few things. But a lot of that research and that time I spent working on my models, my floor ceilings, my spreadsheets has gone towards betting and taping fights and looking towards how I can beat the betting market instead of the DraftKings market. So I haven't been playing to the full to my extent. I know that hopefully things will get back normal shortly. But for right now, we're focusing on betting. We're having fun doing so. And we're just getting my few lineups out there for the various Ironmans I'm in.
Speaking of which, it seems like seem to know something about the future of DFS up here in Ontario. Please do let us know what the latest is because I haven't heard anything myself.
I just heard it was a temporary thing and that as soon as they're able to get that legalized, it'll be back here. I know that nothing's set in stone. All right. This is all something that they had to do. It's not DraftKings itself. It was the whole, just the Ontario regulations having to go over that and do that. But right now, nothing really I know of I can add really with a really confidence and just saying that it should be back sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, I think I will be moving to the States next couple of years anyways for some school.
Ooh.
So there's some other developments there. But with that being said, right now, in the way that we are, no DraftKings, no DFS, purely betting. And
No
that's
prize
what we're here to
picks.
talk about. No prize picks, no Thrive, none of that.
Yeah, hopefully they can change those laws. And I get it. We had a trade off in terms of letting go of DFS, but also getting a lot of these bookies like DraftKings and like FanDuel and all these other bookies that came over to over to Ontario back in April. But hopefully they can actually get with the times and just be like, hey, let's do it all. It's all the same shit. Betting is betting, whether it's lineups or straight bets. So hopefully they can get that squared off. All right. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the 12 fight card that we got coming up tomorrow night. First of which starts us off in the women's bantamweight division between Mayra Bueno Silva and Stephanie Egger. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 130 on Stephanie Egger and plus 110 on Mayra Bueno. Interestingly enough, DraftKings actually opened up Stephanie Egger as a plus 130 dog. Steady money coming in on her side to make her the favorite now. And I agree with that. I got a little late on the tape on this, but I still managed to get a decent number of minus 113 on Stephanie Egger in this spot. Her Olympic level judo should be able to help her here in terms of getting this fight to the ground, as it has over the last couple fights, right? The Jessica Rose Clark fight and even the she had a young fight where she's able to get them to the ground and just use her crushing top pressure to stay on top and either rain down shots or wait for a submission opportunity to open itself up so that she can snatch that up as well. I love everything she brings to the table. I'm not sure where the disrespect is coming from her. Is it because of the Tracy Cortez fight? We know Tracy is one of the best fighters in that division, so you can't detract her too much from that matchup. But I'm glad that she's making it up with these past 2 performances. I'm going to call it 3 performances now because I think she goes out there and gets that win. I think there is absolutely a possibility that she can go out there and get that TKO victory from on top, which currently sits at plus 800. But I'm more than happy with that money line at minus 113. And that's probably where I'll have the majority of my action. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Am I not giving Bueno Silva enough props here, or do you agree on the Stephanie Egger side?
You know what? I have to go head to head with you on the first one. It's not what
All
I'm
right.
going with. Yeah, it's not what I'm saying with supreme confidence. I have not bet the MBS side. I do think it was one where I was waiting for the line to keep moving. It has finally seen some buyback on the MBS side. It was at plus 120. Now it's plus 105 on that online. So right now, again, a lot of love with Stephanie Egger, and I get it. As a dog, she has a very solid ability to win a fight. But when you're betting her at chalk, you're really relying on her to go out there and do everything perfect. Because Stephanie Egger, I don't think she's necessarily the better striker. I don't think necessarily think she's the better submission grappler. What she is going to be, she's going to be the better person with top control and in the clinch. And in order for her to win this fight, which I would like her to do at dog odds, you're going to have to see a perfect fight from her, right? You're going to have to see her get into the clinch, close distance, and lay on top and really make herself safe. I just think that there's way too many ifs, ands, or buts when you're betting the Egger side, because I think that MBS is going to be the more solid striker from range. She's going to be the ability to have more power and also have the ability to go out there and put Egger in some difficult spots. I think that despite the judo game and the top pressure of Stephanie Egger, I mean, MBS is no Jessica Rose Clark or Shanna Young. I think she's going to throw up some resistance on the ground. I think she's going to have the ability to go out there and make things just really a hairy situation. And for that reason, whereas I don't mind your shot on Egger, especially at those odds, I cannot get anywhere near her in where the money line is now. I think instead, if the line keeps going up, I told myself I'd bet MBS at plus 115. I can get that right now. I might have to do that just because I do think that she has those advantages that I've mentioned, the striking, the offensive grappling, and the ability to go out there and make it a lot closer fight. With that being said, again, not something I'm rushing to go play. I do think that it's going to be a really fun fight. I think that Egger's going to have the ability to win those minutes, win those wrestling exchanges, get those judo throws that we know she's good at. But I think that she's really going to just struggle a lot more than people are saying too. I heard a lot of people saying she's just going to roll through here. I do think that MBS is going to put up a fight. I think she's going to have those huge striking advantages there. I do think that the longer it stays at range, the longer MBS should look like the original favorite that she was. That being said, don't mind the minus 113. And I got to go the other way on this one.
Yeah, I kind of blew through my breakdown and kind of just completely overlooked the Myra Bueno Silva side because you are right. I'm glad that you brought up those points. She's the better striker. She has some good power in her strikes. She's very active off her back at times, like sometimes to a fault, right? She can almost allow opponents to just grind her out from on top, thinking that she's eventually going to lock up a submission. But if that does not come, she's giving up valuable minutes with her opponent on top of her and giving up the round essentially as well. So interesting fight to kick off the card. Interesting line movement. Let's see if the public is right or if the odds makers were the correct ones at the jump here. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. It's another women's fight, but this one taking place in the strawweight division. We got Corey McKenna taking on Miranda Granger. In terms of odds, we got minus 195 on Corey McKenna and plus 165 for the newish mom, Miranda Granger, which is why she's been off for about 2 years now. Gordo, I'll let you kick this one off, my friend. What are you thinking about these two strawweights? Who gets their hand raised here?
Yeah, I don't want to go out here and repeat the same thing of the if, ands, or buts theory, but again, Corey McKenna is someone who has a really good skill set that we haven't seen really utilized to her full extent. We see some questionable fight IQs, questionable decision last time out, and that's why I think that this line may be a bit wide. With that being said, I do think she's a more talented fighter with the path to victory, and being this fight with the newer mom, as you mentioned, Miranda Granger, I do think that she has the ability to go out there and win. But when I'm looking at this wide price range, especially at the plus 205, I do think that was a bit disrespectful to Miranda Granger because if Corey McKenna fights that same fight she did last time, it's going to be hairy. I think Miranda Granger is the better striker, is the rangier striker, and is really just one that is going to go out there and make things hairy once again. I think that this fight is also going to be very close. With that being said, if they fight to the fullest of their abilities, if they fight to the best that they can, Corey McKenna has this fight done, locked and loaded. She's the better grappler, the better wrestler. I do think that if she closes that distance, she's going to have the ability to even put away someone in Miranda Granger. That being said, I think that Miranda Granger, despite having coming off that pregnancy, is working on the right things. I've seen the right things from her when I'm looking into her her Instagram, just talking to her socials and making sure I see what she's working on. I do think she is working on the better things here, and I do think she's improving her game. The longer this stays at range, the more that Corey McKenna plays that Elise Reed fight, Miranda Granger is going to look way better than a plus 200 underdog. That being said, I can't bet that because, again, ifs, ands, or buts. I don't want to be betting on such low-level WMMA. I think that Corey McKenna is the rightful favorite, but shouldn't be this wide, in my opinion.
I love how you use the term stalking her Instagram page, but as cappers and analysts and stuff, we essentially are stalking these fighters to try to find out what they are best at, and what they're currently doing and what they're up to, who they're training with. So you're absolutely on the button there. I'm largely in agreement with you, man. I think personally that Corey McKenna is just a little bit overrated, which is why she continues to get this minus 200, minus 250 price tag fight after fight. And I think we're slowly starting to see it unravel, obviously with that Elise Reed fight last time around. And it could absolutely happen here with Miranda Granger, right? We're talking about a 10-inch reach advantage, as well as a 4 to 5-inch height advantage as well. We saw it on display at the weigh-ins and the stare downs this morning, but I thought it'd be a little bit more pronounced. Maybe it will be once they step inside the cage and we see Granger trying to maintain her distance and try to keep her on the outside, and that's where it'll probably come into play. But if McKenna can get in on the outside, get those takedowns, she could have some decent work that she can put together. I'm not totally sold on her ability to crush people from on top. Like, I don't think she has a super impressive top game. We saw Elise Reed get taken down 3 times, but get right back to her feet all those times. Miranda Granger, a little bit offensive off her back as well, right? I'm interested to see what her lanky frame can pose in terms of issues here for Corey McKenna. And it's not like Corey McKenna is an Ashley Yoder type BJJ player, right? Ashley Yoder very good at getting the back and kind of backpacking opponents. And that's what Miranda Granger fell to in that fight. But I don't see Corey McKenna being able to do that in this spot. So if this turns into, if the ground gets nullified, if we continue to see this fight take place on the feet, Granger could absolutely chip away from the outside and keep this, keep this close and possibly even come out with a victory herself. She looked great at the weigh-ins this morning. She was second on the scales after Thiago Santos. So you got to believe that she's been putting in the work, post-pregnancy and through everything that she had to go through with her body to begin with. Now she's back into fighting shape. She's ready to go. I want to see her go out there and perform first before I actually trust her with my money. But you could get a much worse price tag than plus 180, plus 200, right? In a situation like this. So, prediction wise, I'll go with McKenna, but in terms of straight betting, it will be hard to even come up with a legitimate enough argument to parlay Corey McKenna in this spot. But it's just as hard to come up with the, courage and get the balls to bet on Miranda Granger as a dog in the spot postpartum, pretty much, right?
Yeah. I agree too, and I think if you add in let's talk some DFS here shortly because I have to talk.
Yeah, let's go.
For me, this is a really volatile card. A lot of fighters where we have some very live underdogs, but also ones who could be, let's say, flatlined early on and really limited to a lot of scores. Because I do see a lot of finishes on this card. I think that Miranda Granger has a high enough of a floor to really roster at 7.1K. I think that she's just a bit underpriced here. I think that she has the ability to go out there and win a decision. She has the striking ability. She has the range. And I do think that she is a very good underdog option at 7.1K just because she has that higher floor than the other people around her. So she's definitely one I'm actually going to go roster more than I'd like to admit just because it is Miranda Granger. But she is one I'm going to definitely go towards in those cash and those low ownership cheap plays.
Yeah, and it's not like she just stumbled upon a 7-2 record, right? Like she's actually gone out there and gotten wins. So she has a winnable style of fighting. So let's see if she can go out there and snap this 2-fight losing streak that she's currently on, and maybe get a win for her newborn baby as well. Maybe even bring home a performance bonus because I'm sure they would enjoy that as well. I have to throw it out there. Miranda Granger by submission is plus 1,600, worth a little bit of a shot, especially with McKenna. If she is going to be going out there and trying to get this fight to the ground, she's going to be fighting off some submissions. So I think that is absolutely live in this spot. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got a welterweight bout between Jason Witt and Josh Quinlan. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 245 for Josh Quinlan and plus 205 the return on Jason Witt. Now, the entire week, like I'm like, hey, Jason Witt's a big dude. You know what I mean? This guy's always very tough to deal with in terms of his strength. When fights are going his way, he's able to drag guys to the ground and kind of, either control them from on top or, work to a submission, work to a finish. He's very good from that top position when he's able to get fights there. But the issue is his chin, right? His durability. He's very fragile. Guys can get smothered by him for 6.5 minutes and then wake up and eventually land a big shot and get him out of there. That's the big concern you always have with Jason Witt, which is why I don't believe he'll be a favorite that often in his fights, because there's always that liability of him getting chin checked. You can win 99% of a fight, but if you slip up for 1 second, and we've seen it with Jason Witt time and time again, you could end up paying for it. On the flip side, the point I was trying to get at the beginning of this breakdown was, Jason Witt is big, but man, I was surprised how big Josh Quinlan looked beside him as well. Like this guy's pretty big himself for this weight class, and I was surprised that Jason Witt wasn't bigger than him. I didn't look at the metrics specifically myself. Like I should have done that. I just automatically assumed that Jason Witt would be the bigger guy, but Witt is 5'10" with a 70-inch reach, and then on the flip side for Josh Quinlan, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. So very big dude there as well, who hits very hard, trains out of the infamous One Fight Team, aka the third best MMA gym in Las Vegas. But he's still gone out there, has a unscathed 5-0 record, technically 6-0 should he have not gotten popped for USADA the last time around. And that's where my hesitancy lays. Like, does that USADA issue cause him not to have that knockout power anymore? Does it affect his possible cardio? Right? Like from what we've seen on tape, his cardio looks great. He's able to go into third rounds, still pull off submission victories. That's fine by me. But what does it look like now that he's not on those vitamins, right? How is that going to help him out dealing with a big guy like Jason Witt? So tough for me to sack up here and lay the chalk on Josh Quinlan at minus 245. I think the best way to go about it would either be playing him inside the distance at minus 165 or by KO at plus 100. And the only reason I say inside the distance is there is absolutely the possibility of a club and sub situation. It's absolutely possible. And you don't want to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, taking that plus 100 when you could have just taken the minus 165. I get it. There's a huge difference in numbers there, but you want to cover that possible submission outcome, as it is absolutely live in this spot. Weigh-ins wise, both guys look great to me. You know what I mean? Quinlan looking shredded as hell, lean and shredded, I should say. And then Jason Witt looking like the gorilla that he is. But prediction wise, I'll go with the Quinlan side. I do think he gets the knockout at a certain point here. I get the argument for Jason Witt because we've seen him survive the Brian Barberena fight, right? Everybody and their mama was on the Brian Barberena fight trying to, hope that he can crack that chin of Jason Witt. It didn't happen. Sometimes the chin shows up. Most of the time, the chin does not. Is tomorrow going to be some of the time or most of the time? We'll have to wait and find out, but I'm not going to be willing to pay that minus 245 to find out personally. So Quinlan by KO will be the spot for me, but no play on the money line. What about yourself?
Yeah, this is one where I was waiting to see how you would target this one because I need your opinion. I told myself all week I wasn't going to touch this fight. Like I've lost enough money trying to hope Jason Witt has enough of a chin, and I told myself there's no way I'm touching this. That being said, I'm going to have a lot of Quinlan on DraftKings, and I do think that's the way I'm going to target this one, is because I do think he has finish upside, high scoring, really has the ability to do well. But there's 2 lines that have caught my eye, both of them being on DraftKings Sportsbook, and I really just needed to know how you really saw this one going down. First one of them is fight doesn't start round 3. It's sitting at minus 120. I do think that it's a bit too short because Quinlan's win condition is probably that early knockout. If it stays on the feet for any period of time, I mean, you got to expect that Josh Quinlan's going to have the opportunity to touch that chin of Jason Witt and really break it as easily as everybody else has. And that being said, if Jason Witt's able to get off his game, you mentioned it. The elephant in the room is the USADA suspension from Josh Quinlan. It's a guy has been a cheater. I mean, I don't want to put it harshly, but he's been caught red-handed using all of these things, and how is he going to look without the really ability to go out and do that same thing? I think that I might end up playing the fight doesn't start round 3 because minus 120 is a bit too short. But the other way you could look at this thing is going to be the decision only line. Again, getting fancy, getting cute, but Jason Witt decision only is minus 125. I don't think that Josh Quinlan can go out there and win a decision as proactively as Jason Witt can. I think Witt has a lot of the minute winning equity here. I think he has the ability to go out there and grapple him, wrestle him, win minutes on the ground. And that's the reason why I'm kind of liking his decision only line. Because if the fight ends inside the distance, we know that it's most likely going to be Josh Quinlan. right? Getting that knockout, touching that chin, or going to be Jason Witt wearing him down on the ground, exposing this Dana White Contender Series. I know your buddy Clint's going to be on that Dana White Contender Series fade,
He
right?
already
So
is. That was the
he
first
already
play,
is.
if I'm not mistaken.
So I know that there's always that look of him exposing that fraudulent fighter, exposing that guy who's no longer on the drugs, we hope. So again, two ways to look at it. Either fight doesn't start round 3, give me violence, or Jason Witt winning a decision. And I think he does have a lot more finish or decision equity here in that spot, to which minus 125 does look pretty good.
That is a phenomenal line on the Jason Witt decision. Sorry. It's finish, no bet, right? Is that pretty much what it is? If there's a finish,
Yes.
there's no bet. Correct.
I think it's only on DraftKings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The only way to lose that bet is pretty much if Quinlan wins a decision.
Yes.
There you go. Good spot for my guy Gordo there. But we both are seeming to be on the Quinlan side, thinking that he'll be able to get that finish at a certain point. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. We got another welterweight bout between Takashi Sato and Brian Battle in terms of odds. We're currently looking at minus 295 on Brian Battle, plus 245 the return on Takashi Sato. This line has been taking steady action since Brian Battle opened up as a minus 215 favorite. Curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Gordo. What are you thinking in this welterweight scrap?
Yeah, let's face it. Battle did not look good at weigh-ins today. He's a guy who is a very, very big dude, dropping down to a weight class. And I'm not the biggest Takashi Sato fan. I do think that there are some holes in his game, and I do think that I'm most likely to be one to fade him. But I think he has a decent matchup here. For me, this is the one fight on the card where I'm just completely avoiding it at all costs. I think that the more talented fighter in his terms of his skill set, who will most likely win this matchup, is Brian Battle. But he's also the guy with more unknowns. First time at this weight class, first time looking really bad at us on the scale for me. I think he looked awful. The guy who has probably the weaker striking defense, the guy who's going to be hit more often, and the guy who's going to be just a completely different fighter in my eyes, because he's not going to have that same matchup against Tresean Gore, where guys going to be walking him down and where he does have that clear path to victory on the ground. I think it's going to be a spot where we're going to get a new Brian Battle, someone who's going to have to mix in his game, show a multifaceted MMA approach. And I don't think I can necessarily trust him that much at this price tag with his striking defense, with his new weight cut. But that being said, I do think he's a better fighter. I do think he wins this fight. Just too many unknowns for me. I think that the KO line on Sato's a bit wide as well, because the way he's looking on the scales and with that striking defense, it's possible. But again, this is my stay away fight. I think I'm just going to sit back, enjoy. Hopefully it's a violent affair. And I'm curious to hear what you got to say about it.
Yeah, I went pretty big on Brian Battle earlier this week at minus 230. Like I felt pretty damn good about him at that spot. I knew he was going to take action, which is why I got in as early as I did. Like, the opener was roughly around 215. I got at 230. But yeah, you're right. There's no way about it. Like somebody as myself, trying to go out there and defend Brian Battle and how he looks on the scale, it doesn't make the most sense for me, right? But like, one thing we have to remember is that we see these guys more often than not look bad on the scale, but still go out there and perform to the best of their abilities, right? Like last week, prime example, Drew Dober looked like absolute dog shit on the scales, goes out there and does what you would assume somebody that looked like him on the scales wouldn't be able to do. And that's a third round KO victory that he was able to get over a tough Rafael Alves. Beat him with the body too, which was a beautiful body shot that he was able to land there. So is it a bit of a concern that he might start to slow down or his durability is deterred? It could be, but I truly believe that you kind of touched on it, his multifaceted game will really help him out in this spot with his output, his striking, his movement, and his ability to mix in takedowns. I think that's where he's going to find most of his success. Takashi Sato's ground game needs a lot of work. And I see a lot of people out there saying, hey, Gunnar Nelson couldn't submit him. Well, he knew Gunnar Nelson was going to do exactly that. He knew Gunnar Nelson was going to go out there, try to take him down, and try to submit him. And he showed off some solid submission defense, right? Just because Gunnar Nelson was not able to submit him doesn't mean other guys won't be able to submit him, right? You got Miguel Baeza and Bilal Muhammad, who, in my opinion, I don't think they ever had gotten a submission inside the UFC before that fight. So it's one of those spots where, they're able to work in a full game. Like I could see this looking like the Bilal Muhammad fight where he outstrikes him on the feet just based off of output. Hopefully, his chin holds up there. He doesn't take the brunt of the shot there, but I do think he'll be able to get that fight to the ground eventually and then work him there, eventually opening up a submission opportunity for himself. I believe it's plus 250, plus 300. Let me just quickly check on the line here for the Brian Battle via submission line. Plus 275 and plus 300 is what I'm seeing at most spots. I like that. But if anybody has any hesitancy and you already have action on Brian Battle, you could get a much worse line than plus 400 via KO for Takashi Sato, as that's usually his best path to victory. The guy's not a great minute winner. He's not great with his output. And I think that he's going to have to clip Brian Battle at a certain point here to get that victory. I don't see it happening. I'm not stressed out to the point that I'm hedging out on my Brian Battle action at this point in time. But I have told anybody telling me that I'm like, hey, if you feel any type of sketch or any type of way about this, I'll give you my reasonings as to why you shouldn't. Then you can take your plus 400 hedge on Sato by KO. Otherwise, let's ride this shit until the wheels fall off, essentially, on Brian Battle. I think personally, I think he's quite skilled in terms of being able to utilize the full MMA game to get his hand raised. Output, movement, cardio, and wrestling, and his jiu-jitsu, it's all there. And the guy's durability has held up in the past, right? We saw the Andre Prosarsky fight. We saw him deal with some big shots from Trishan Gordon, still keep coming forward. If he can bring that same durability into this cage, he'll have absolutely no resist, or at least no problems in this fight, at least in my opinion. So, Brian Battle, I got in at minus 230 earlier this week. Minus 300, getting a little bit wild, I'll admit that, but I still think he goes out there and has a minus 300 type performance, honestly.
Fair play.
All right, let us move into the next fight here. We're going to be talking about Terrence McKinney and Eric Gonzalez. In terms of odds, we currently got minus 850 on Terrence McKinney, plus 600 the return on Eric Gonzalez. Both guys look great at the weigh-ins, right? That's first and foremost. Secondly, Terrence McKinney, a guy most notably known for having a gas tank of 3 to 4 minutes, and that's really about it. People want to continue to give him the benefit of the doubt, being like, oh, he came in on short notice. Like, we see it time and time again that the guy just slows down because he comes out with such a hellacious style. He comes out with a hellacious pace, wants to go out there and try to land the big shots, try to get his opponents out of there. His striking mainly consists of his left down the middle and that left high kick. That's really about it. Like, he doesn't have much else to his game. But other than the grappling is truly where he thrives. He has a great wrestling background. He has amazing jiu-jitsu. If he wanted to be a 3-round fighter, he could absolutely do that by implementing his grappling more often than not. The question is, will his cardio allow him to do that? Because he's so used to fighting a certain way, which is go, go, go. 14 out of his 16 fights have not reached the second round. 15 out of his 16 fights have all finished under 1.5 rounds as well. That is why the under 1.5 currently sits around minus 265. Makes complete sense to me. The way that I look to approach this, I parlayed the fight does not start round 3 at minus 350. I parlayed it with a couple other things on this card. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm hoping that we get a death gas from Terrence McKinney going into that second round, and Eric Gonzalez possibly puts him away in that second round. And you need that willing dance partner to go out there and create violence. And Eric Gonzalez, in my opinion, is that guy to go out there and create some violence as well, should he be able to take over or take advantage of the cardio issues of Terrence McKinney. So I think McKinney wins. I think McKinney wins in round 1, to be honest. Minus 200 is what that current line is at, which is absolutely crazy. Just throwing it out there, tinfoil hat conspiracy. Eric Gonzalez round 2 is plus 2,500. Eric Gonzalez round 3 is plus 3,500. So if you want to take a little bit of sprinkle on both those spots, thinking that he can survive the early onslaught from Terrence McKinney, by all means, go for it. I think that will end up looking pretty good should this fight escape the first round. But I do think that McKinney will just put it on him right from the jump, land a big shot, get him to the ground, whatever it may be. We've seen how quickly he can pass, from full guard to side control to half guard to full mount. We saw it in the Ferocium fight, and I don't think that Eric Gonzalez brings anything more to the table in terms of his his grappling defense that's going to give Terrence McKinney too many issues. So am I parlaying Terrence McKinney at minus 850? No, I would rather take the under 1.5 for the fight to not start round 3. 1, it's at a better number, and 2, it covers a possible banana peel moment on the Terrence McKinney side, or him gassing out and Eric Gonzalez finishing him. So pick is McKinney round 1 finish, but the violence is probably what I would look to have action on, if at all, in this fight. What about yourself, man?
I'm so happy you said that, man. I placed a parlay last night with the fight to start round 3.
Oh,
that, and the fight we're talking about later, that's what I'm targeting as well. I think it's a really interesting matchup. Of course, you're going to have Terrence McKinney minus 200 to finish round 1. Is that the most likely outcome? Yes. But what are you gaining from betting him to finish round 1 at minus 200? I don't think it's necessarily a spot you're going to do. For me, it's interesting because Terrence McKinney, of course, is going to be my highest owned fighter on DraftKings. Huge finish upside, 9.5K. He's expensive, but for a good reason. He's a guy I'm really thinking is going to win this fight. But I'm not betting Terrence McKinney. I'm betting the fight doesn't start round 3, and I'm right there with you. I took a shot on Gonzalez inside the distance when it was plus 1,100 earlier in the
Oh,
week,
wow.
just because it's so many if, ands, or buts. Again, I've said this a few times already, because if Terrence McKinney doesn't get that finish in the first round, and we've seen Gonzalez be willing to trade and show decent heart and resiliency, what's going to happen in round 2? What's going to happen as soon as he gasses out? What happens when he faces any type of resistance at all? I have no idea. Of course, I didn't go and bet multiple units on it. I took a shot on it because it's an if situation. If he survives, if he can make it there. I do like your shots in round 2 and 3 because I don't really see Gonzalez winning in round 1 that often. It's more of a gassing situation. The other thing about McKinney too is, however talented he may be, he's a very frail fighter. And I say that with respect because, of course, he can beat me up. Of course, anybody in the cage can. But Terrence McKinney's a guy who has been rocked multiple times. I mean, he hurt his leg when he did a backflip off the cage.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy who's very he doesn't have like the biggest ability to withstand damage. And I think that anytime he's going to face a lot of resistance, that it's the banana peel slipping is very, it's not impossible, is what I'm trying to say. I think if anyone's going to slip a banana peel, it could be him. That being said, he's a more talented fighter. I think he has multiple paths of victory. I think he wins this fight at a very high clip. Not enough for me to bet him at minus 850. Not enough for me to play him round 1, minus 200. Instead, targeting him on DraftKings, playing the fight doesn't go, and a small shot on Gonzalez inside the distance.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Hopefully he doesn't slip on a banana peel. But then again, at least I would be covered with the violence bets more than anything. All right, let's move on to the next fight here, and it's going to be the prelim headliner. We got the middleweight debut of Michal Oleksiejczuk. He's going up against probably the farewell fight for Sam Alvey in the UFC. We got minus 645 on Oleksiejczuk and plus 480 the return on Sam Alvey. Now, Alvey was one of the guys that kind of looked rough at the weigh-ins. He initially weighed in at 187, didn't even bring out the box of shame initially because he's like, there's no way I can do this. That led me to believe that he had stopped cutting, but they gave him another hour. They actually made him and Oleksiejczuk face off first so that he can just go back and cut some more weight. And then he did step back onto the scales backstage and made the weight. So he is cleared. He is ready to go at 186 pounds. He's admitted that it's been the roughest weight cut of his career. So maybe that will let us know, how much weight cuts truly affect fights, essentially, seeing how he performs and what his durability looks like. I'll let you actually kick this one off, though, like in terms of a stylistic standpoint. How do you think these guys match up? And, is the price tag too wide? Is there another spot that you're looking at to take advantage of? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, so when I was originally thinking about people who would struggle to make weight, I was thinking be more on the Oleksiejczuk side. I know he's coming down a weight class. I know that a certain image circulating of him not looking great. And I do think that this is one where let's not get away from ourselves. Sam Alvey is on, a 7-fight skid, and he's coming into fighting again. It's not pretty. Sam Alvey's not someone that you're going to want to trust even at this big plus money price tag. But for me, I'm not betting Oleksiejczuk at this price tag either, because I think that his style gives the one chance for Alvey to get the win, which is that counter hook. Michal's going to walk forward. He's going to be having a weight cut, which may make him easier to finish. So is it impossible for Alvey to get that finish? No, it's one win condition, in my opinion. I think the better minute winner, the better pressure, the better boxer, the better technicality is going to be Michal Oleksiejczuk, and I think he is a rightful favorite. With that being said, I took the under in this spot. I took the fight doesn't go at minus 160. I do like that spot quite a bit because I do think the most likely outcome is Michal pushes forward, pressures Sam Alvey, and finishes him, adding another loss to the record. I think that is what happens most of the time. With that being said, the win condition for Smiling Sam is a counter hook. We know that's what he is. And out of everyone to give him that walk forward ability to counter matchup, it is going to be Michal Oleksiejczuk. However, Michal has seemed to be decently durable enough to take those shots. So I don't think that necessarily that's going to happen too often. But again, instead of just taking Michal inside the distance, I'm taking that fight doesn't go. I think it's going to be a fun, electrifying fight. The weight cut miss, or the original weight miss for Sam Alvey, makes me like the Michal side even more. I think the most likely outcome is Michal walks forward, pressures him like he did to his last opponent, and just takes him out of there.
Me and you are on the same page here, my friend. I do like that fight doesn't go to decision as well.
Love it.
That's what I ended up parlaying with that fight to not start round 3 of of the McKinney and Gonzalez fight. It's actually a 3-leg parlay that I put together. I'll talk about that last leg, which is a little bit later on this card. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you, man. Like, you can get -110 on Michal to win inside the distance, but there is absolutely that opportunity for Sam Alvey to land a big shot because of the style of Michal, right? Just wanes forward, really always puts the pressure on his opponents, never really lets them off. And Sam Alvey, say what you want about any fighter who's on his skid, but if they've been a power puncher in the past, that's the last thing that will usually leave their skill set. And you could absolutely see a scenario where Sam Alvey can land that big strike. However, I do think it's going to be the relentless pressure, the body work of Michal that eventually starts to add up. I know the total is set at 1.5. That one is a little bit too sketchy here, right? I think that it's going to take maybe deep into that second round, early of that third round for Michal's style to truly settle in, which will eventually allow us to cash that fight doesn't go to decision with again, late second, early third round finish from Michal. So again, I share the same sentiments as you do for this matchup. I wouldn't be caught betting that -625 line here, no matter what kind of Sam Alvey that we're getting. But the fight doesn't go to decision. Probably the best way to play it, getting the better line rather than taking Oleksiejczuk, and that is usually how he goes out there and wins this fight. So give me inside the distance. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I really, really like this spot when I taped it. I was completely on it. I really thought that -160 is a great way to go. With that being said, like, if we look at Sam Alvey, he hasn't been crumbled too many times, and it's the more the week going on, the more it is scaring me. But seeing that weight miss today really helped me get back on track, make me like that spot even more. I don't think that either guy looked spectacular. I think that the knockout's going to be there. I think that Michal's going to walk forward no problem, and if he is the fighter of old, we should have no problem cashing that under.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I see my guy Belbetter saying yes to go distance +140 all day. I've seen, like, throughout the week, I've done a ton of content this week. I've seen a lot of people say that they like the fight to go to a decision, and I'm like, I could see your angle as well, but I think that there might be some recency bias in regards to Michal's last fight going to a decision. Right, he's gone to a couple of decisions inside the UFC, but you got to think about the stylistic matchups he has ahead of him. Here with Sam Alvey, he's going to be able to walk him down, as Sam Alvey always likes to just stay on that back foot, keep his back glued against the cage pretty much, and just throw overhands. But like, that plays right into Michal's game of just being able to stalk him, get him into that corner, unload with his combinations, hopefully work that body enough that he could, get Sam to start dropping his hands down, then go up top and possibly get that spot as well. So Sam used to be a guy that was known for his durability, known for his ability to take damage. But as we're seeing during this 8-fight tumultuous run that he's currently on, it's starting to decline. And I think now you got a big, heavy puncher, Michal, in front of him. I think it's going to come to fruition where he can go out there and find that big knockout as well. All right, let us move on to the main card. Before we do, shout out to the 50 live viewers that we currently have hanging with us on this Friday afternoon or evening, if you want to call it that. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe below if you haven't already, and give my guy GordoGambles some love as well. I do have his Twitter account linked in the description below. Click that thing and then click that follow button that you'll see right after that. And I'm sure he'll be blessing you with some solid information for your Twitter timelines. All right, let us move on to the main card here. First of which, we got a fight in the flyweight division between two women. We got Ariane Lipski coming in against Priscilla Cachoeira. In terms of odds, we currently got -180 on Lipski, +155 the return on Priscilla Cachoeira. Now, Lipski, one of the weight scale flubs of the morning. She goes out there and misses weight by 2 pounds. 3 pounds. They reweigh her, with the box of shame, sheds half a pound off of her clothes, still comes in 2.5 pounds over her, 2 pounds over the weight limit there. Not a good look. But to me, physically speaking, she looked fine. Like, she didn't look like somebody that was trying to kill herself to try to make the weight, which, makes me pissed off in a sense that it's just like, hey, be professional, right? Try to get as close to your weight as possible. If you're not going to make the weight, at least look like you're trying to make the weight. She just looked like she skipped from the sauna and said, this is all the weight that I can cut. Let's just go fucking weigh in. Time is up. Whatever. Done. Let's get it over with. So I don't think that weight miss is going to come too much in play here. I think we're going to see this fight play out just as much as it would have played out should she have made weight as she normally does. She's not notoriously known to miss weight. So I think this is a little bit uncharacteristic of her to go out there and do that. Maybe she's just not motivated to fight a girl like Priscilla Cachoeira. Maybe she just thinks she can beat her on her worst day. And I think that having that type of mentality is not a good thing, especially against a girl like the zombie girl who's going to come forward pretty much the entire time, put power on you, put a pace on you. And if you can't keep up with that pace or that power, you're eventually going to crumble under it. See Gina Mazzani, right? Like Ariane Lipski, she is, and I said this all week, she is the better mixed martial artist in this fight, hands down. No doubt about it. But Priscilla Cachoeira is the better fighter. She is the one that will go out there and fight for your money. If you can get her at plus money and, somewhat decent spots, I think this is a decent spot for her. I took the shot on her at plus 150. Again, I'm fully expecting her to get touched up on the outside by Ariane, but I'm expecting at a certain point the tide is going to turn when Priscilla keeps moving forward, doesn't let up, and eventually lands a big shot that's going to start to break Lipski, and she'll continue to keep that pressure on. Does she finish Lipski? I'm not 100% sold on that. Maybe she could, maybe she won't. But I'm still fine with the money line here at plus 150 on Cachoeira. I know what I'm getting myself into by betting Cachoeira, but I'm just not impressed with what we've been seeing from Ariane Lipski, right? Her 3 wins inside the UFC. Isabella de Padua, who took the fight on less than 24 hours notice, if you guys remember that fight. Liruana Carolina, I would have loved to see that fight play out a little bit longer, right? That was that weird knee bar that took like a minute and a half. And then Mandy Baum, who, she might not even be in the UFC in the next couple months if she can't go out there and get another win. So skeptical wins on the UFC level. She was obviously highly touted coming from KSW to the UFC, even to the point that she was like a minus 200 favorite against Joanne Calderwood, a minus 250 favorite against Molly McKenna, and she flubs both of those spots. So tough for me to trust Lipski. Give me the plus money on the Cachoeira side. Yeah, but what do you think? Am I a crazy man here for taking the catch a beating side, or do you think that she has what it takes to pull off the upset here?
You're not crazy, but I did take a different approach to this one. I do not mind Ariane Lipski here. I do think that she's a sneaky option on DraftKings at 8.4K. I'm just not a big fan of Cachoeira. I mean, I bet against her in the past. I bet her last time, but we're not going to talk about that fight. Instead, really, what I took was I took some violence here. Under 2.5 plus 175. I do think that is the way to go, in my opinion. I think that Ariane Lipski. First of all, actually, no. Let's scratch all that. Their nicknames are Queen of Violence and Zombie Girl. That is a badass way to go.
I was going to say this actually, Gordo. They should fight for the title of Queen of Violence, right? Like Lipski, she hasn't really lived up to that Queen of Violence name. Maybe she did in KSW, not so much in the UFC, and now she's fighting against the true Queen of Violence, in my opinion, who just likes to go out there and just be violent. Why not?
For sure. and like she had, first of all, that knee bar, man, is disgusting. Anyway, we're not talking about that. Yeah. But Cachoeira is a fighter who, despite me not being a fan of her skill set, you hit the nail on the head. She will fight for your money. She is a dog, and she will go out there and she'll put everything she has on the line to win the fight. Just ask Jillian Robertson's eyes as they were gouged out. Yeah. She'll do whatever it takes to win the fight. For me, it's a matter of having the fighter who is more talented, who has more paths to victory. Because I do think that Lipski, despite not shooting any takedowns, is the better grappler, is the better fighter on the ground, and does have the ability to go out there and submit her if she decides to do that. But the way I see this one playing out is pretty easy on the feet. Cachoeira walking forward, getting hit with thousands of punches. And if Lipski can't really get her out of there, I think she crumbles. I think that Cachoeira's style is just horrendous to fight against. She melts you. She walks forward. She just keeps coming forward. She's the zombie girl. And for me, I think that the line is just a bit mispriced of that under. I do think that this finish could definitely materialize. And I think that it's definitely one where I can see it from both sides, whether it be Lipski going to a wrestling and getting a submission win, whether it be her landing some powerful shots and connecting to the very, let's say, defensively challenged Zombie Girl Cachoeira, or having Zombie Girl Cachoeira melt Ariane Lipski down the stretch. So for me, I'm taking violence. I don't mind this side of Cachoeira because I always like betting on the fighter who has more heart, more desire to win. With that being said, I do think the more talented fighter is Ariane Lipski, but who knows?
I couldn't come up with a better Canadian way of putting that fight, just the way that you did right now. Like, trying to be nice to Priscilla.
I don't know, man. I gotta be nice to every fight that goes in there, even though she did gouge out our Canadian girl's eyes. So
Yes.
she's always, you know what? She has the Queen of Violence title for that.
Exactly. There you go. And just so you guys know, two fellow Canucks in here, so we can jab ourselves at the Canadian culture every now and then. All right. What do you got there? I love it. I love it. Got the big Canadian hat. I don't think I own, like, I own red and white shirts, but I don't think I own legit anything like Canadian based. I gotta go get some fucking Canadian gear, maybe a Canadian hockey jersey or something like that. Can it get any more Canadian than a Canadian hockey jersey?
Probably not, man. If you get a Leafs jersey though, you might get flamed a bit in the chat, so I'd be careful.
Hey, Leafs till I die. Just so you know, even
For
though
sure. Respect.
I haven't watched the Leafs since Matt Sundin days, honestly. But yeah,
Hey,
I
I got a
used to be a
Raptors one
big
back
NHL
here.
guy.
Raptors
Why are
and
you
Blue
hiding the
Jays back here.
Raptors? Why are you hiding the Raptors?
I gotta get it out there. I got some spicy P jersey in the back. Anyways, yeah, I gotta get the Canadian represent out there.
There you go. I love it. I love it. All right. And it's funny enough that I'm wearing a 76ers fucking cap right now. And they're the ones to eliminate us.
They're our enemies.
I will say this. It's my favorite NBA logo of all time
Oh,
because it
it's
reminds me of my
beautiful.
favorite basketball player of all time. And can you guess who that is?
AI.
There we go. The
There we
answer,
go.
baby. Let's go. All right. Let's get to the next fight here. Let's get back to the MMA talk. Next up, we got a heavyweight fight between Augusto Sakai and Sergey Spivac in terms of odds. More chalk. That is a very constant theme throughout this card. Chalk on the Sergey Spivac side. He has now reached minus 300. Plus 250 is the return on Augusto Sakai. I'll let you kick this one off first, man. What are you thinking about this heavyweight matchup? What do you think about the line? And do you have a play on the fight?
I do have a play on the fight, and I'm going to talk about this with caution because I don't like talking too much about lines that have moved. But earlier in the week, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a pretty mispriced line. They had the under 2.5 set to minus 165, but the fight doesn't go to minus 160. And that's what I hit. I did hit the fight doesn't go up minus 160 for a few units. I think that's a spot where really I think violence is the way to go here. I think that if I'm looking at a fight at a back, I'm looking for an official prediction. It's going to be Sergey Spivac. I think that he is the better all-around mixed martial artist. He's going to have the ground game, and I don't think he's going to have too hard of a time getting it there. I think once he gets it there, he'll have the submission game, he'll have the top control, he'll have the ground and pound to get him out of there. For me, the win condition for Augusto Sakai is going to be a knockout, is going to be him going out there, touching the chin and winning via knockout. I don't think he's the better minute winner. I don't think he's going to have a guy in Sergey Spivak who's going to stay away at range. He's going to have to get him out of there, and he's going to have to get him out of there quickly. Is that impossible? No. Augusto Sakai has great power. It's what he has the most. And Sergey Spivak has been finished before. Spivak has been finished, 3 times, I think, in his career. And I think that Augusto Sakai's win condition isn't out of the woods. With that being said, Sergey Spivak most likely is going to win the more minutes, get him down to the ground repeatedly, probably finish him on the ground. But violence is the way to go. Official pick is going to be Sergey Spivak by ground and pound. But I wouldn't be surprised with a submission or a knockout by Augusto Sakai.
Yeah, originally I was thinking that I was going to be on the Augusto Sakai side here, right? Like I think the line was just a little bit too wide to begin with. Um, I was kind of surprised that it was that wide to begin with, and then you run the tape and then you kind of see what people are seeing. But I feel like we still need a little bit more data on the ground game of Augusto Sakai. Like it hasn't looked the greatest when he gets taken down, right? Obviously the Alistair Overeem fight where he gets mauled in the third, fourth, and fifth round, but I'm kind of chalking that up to him just gassing out, right? Like I don't think he has much 5-round experience, and I think that's where he kind of faltered there. So I gave him a pass in that fight. The Blagoy Ivanov fight, he stuffed 2 of 3 takedowns. One of those being, the cage stuff to take down for him, if you guys remember that one. And then before that was the Dana White Contender Series fight that he had, where he stuffed 8 of 9 takedowns. But that guy was absolute trash, absolute garbage. So this will definitely be the best grappling heavy minded guy that he's going to be fighting in his most recent years, and I think that's where people are finding that confidence that Spivac will likely get this fight to the ground and maul him there. I think on the feet, Sakai is definitely the better striker, and I don't necessarily agree with your analysis in regards to him not being a minute winner, because I think he could be a minute winner on the feet. Like if he touches up Spivac enough, I think he could possibly win some minutes there. I never really thought of him as being this big like power puncher in the past, because a lot of his fights mainly go to a decision, and he's getting his hand raised by pointing these guys on the feet. I think that I'm trying to remember the guy that he knocked out. Was it Chase Sherman, the most recent knockout win that he had? because that's just not, KOs are not something that usually go with Sakai's name more
Marcin
often.
Tybura.
Marcin Tybura, you knocked him out in a minute there, and he ground and pounded Chase Sherman back in 2018. The knockout victory he has over Marcos Conrado Jr. Watch that fight back, guys. That guy was absolute dog shit. The guy was gassed 3 to 4 minutes into that fight. So I'm not really going to count that one. But yeah, I think ultimately Spivac will be able to get this fight to the ground. And then from on top, he's going to be very difficult to deal with, right? I saw one narrative going around this week in regards to Sergey Spivac is tough to trust because once he gets cracked, he looks for a way out. I think that is a very, I think that's a wrong narrative. I don't think that is a correct narrative at all. Okay, he loses his first fight in the UFC to Walt Harris. UFC debut, flying across the world to Ottawa. You probably were there if you lived in Ottawa there.
No, I was not.
You're not there. He sorry, you probably weren't in Ottawa at that time now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, he loses his UFC debut. Okay, no shame in that. It is what it is. The other guy to smoke him out was Tom Aspinall, right? Fucking Tom Aspinall. That's what Tom Aspinall does. If we've come to know anything about Tom Aspinall, that's what he does. And then the other loss was Marcin Tybura, where Tybura just put together a much better full MMA game there. So good work from Tybura there. But like he's beaten heavy hitters in the past. He beat Tai Tuivasa, who put the pressure on him early, and then he eventually submitted him there. He beat Greg Hardy in his last fight, who was one of the biggest hitters in the game, and he stood up to him. So I see the Spivac side. I was, confused between the inside the distance or decision. But now that I'm thinking about it, I do think that he could absolutely go out there and really rain down some big shots on Augusto Sakai from on top. I don't know if he'll look to seek a submission. I think he's just going to get that top position and start to rain down shots and get a TKO. So Spivac via TKO would not be a bad way to approach this, especially if you don't want to eat that minus 300 chalk. Spivac by KO is currently plus 175. So bet as you guys wish in that matchup, but we're both going with with Spivac.
Some violence.
And some violence. There we go. All right, let's move on to the next fight here, and it is a women's flyweight bout, and in particular, it is the tough finale for the women's flyweights here, and we're going to be looking at Brogan Walker going up against Juliana Miller. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 120 on Juliana Miller, plus 100 the return on Brogan Walker. Interesting fight here between, I guess we can call it striker versus grappler, right? Like Juliana Miller goes out there, looks to get fights to the ground, and that's where she tries to get her best work done. I think, we saw her kind of learn from her mistakes in her one legit professional loss, which was that Claire Guthrie fight where she just stayed on desperation takedown after desperation takedown. And Claire Guthrie was the one successfully defending while dishing damage. And damage was the key word there because Juliana Miller did none of that in that fight. Luckily, she learned from those mistakes, and we saw in the second fight where they ended up meeting up in the house for the Ultimate Fighter, where she starts getting those takedowns and start dishing out damage, which is why she ends up getting her hand raised there. She has a smothering top game when she's able to get on top, but I still think that her wrestling needs a little bit of work. Like, yes, you can be successful with getting girls down, but like, how successful are you going to do that as you take steps up in competition? Brogan Walker, very crisp striker. You're probably one of the best strikers in the house in terms of the women there. Good combinations, good footwork. She knows what she's doing when she's throwing her strikes. Very technical for sure. Takedown defense doesn't look half bad, right? She's obviously going to have to deal with it here against Juliana Miller, but I do think that she can be successful in keeping this fight upright long enough to get her volume striking out, and I think that should be enough for her to take home a decision win. Not the highest on this, in my opinion. I'm not taking the bet myself. I know she's at plus 100 right now. She actually opened up as the favorite, and then money came in immediately on Juliana Miller. But I think Walker will be fine. And before I pass on over to you, I'm not sure if you saw their stare down situation, but like I think Juliana Miller called her salty or something, and she goes, "What are you talking about? What would I be salty about?" But maybe something happened on the show. I didn't watch the show. Fuck the show. I only watch the fights. But I'm going to go with Brogan Walker. I think she outstrikes her, keeps this fight upright, and takes home a decision victory, as well as that tough trophy. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
That was going to be my next question was, did you actually watch any of the episodes?
Fuck no.
You know what?
I didn't even know it was on until like episode 4. I'm like, oh, you guys, one, did not promote this properly. And two, I had no fucking idea. So
I put myself I put myself through some pain watching it. It wasn't the most entertaining bouts, but let me just say, with all due respect, I'm not a fan of Juliana Miller. I think she kind of annoyed me on the show, if I'm being honest. So we didn't miss out anything there. But you know what we have here is we have a classic 2-1 fighter coming on the Ultimate Fighter versus someone who I actually think has decent promise in the UFC. I think that Brogan Walker should be favored in the spot a lot more than she is, because I think she is the more solid fighter all around. I think that Juliana Miller showed a lot of heart, showed a lot of ability to go out there and win fights, battle back, just be tough. And I respect that. That's what you want to see in some fighters, someone who's going to be tough and fight for your money. But I don't think she has a full all-around MMA game in order to win her a lot of fights, especially in the spot right here. Great submission game, great heart, but those are the two things I really have. Her wrestling needs work. Her striking needs a lot of work. And I do think that her all-around ability to win fights isn't necessarily there. On the feet is going to be Walker all day. I think she's going to have the ability to go out there and look a lot like a bigger favorite, especially be more than the dog that she is now. I think that she also has that black belt that if it does get into dangerous waters on the ground, she's going to be able to withstand that pressure from Juliana Miller. I think that Brogan Walker is going to have enough takedown defense, though. I don't think that I can rate Juliana Miller's takedown offense that much. I think Walker's going to have the ability to keep it upright and just outclass her. I think that decision is the right way to go. I have a unit bet on Brogan Walker as a just straight money line pick, but I could also go for the decision, no problem, because we did see Miller be super, super tough and durable. That being said, give me Walker all day. I think she's got more vet experience, better striking, good takedown defense, good enough ground game to keep up with her if it does get down there, and just the ability to go out there and win the fight.
I like it. I'm glad we're on the same side there. Again, at most, I'll probably have Broken Walker in like a lottery ticket parlay or something like that. But as an official bet, I'll probably stay away myself. Seems like you have more confidence in that spot.
Unfortunately, it's not something I
No
should be too
worries.
confident about.
Hey, if you see an edge, fucking go for it. And you've been damn good with spotting your edges and cashing those tickets. So there is some merit to there. All right. Shout out to my guy, Mr. Always Profit here, letting us know Sebi got finished in round one. Hilarious. Mahmoud Sebi, minus 1250 flub back in late last year, November of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Gets signed to the PFL and loses by uppercut and punches in the first round. Hilarious.
Ouch. Absolutely. I forgot that was going on. Let me catch up with the rest of it.
PFL started at 6 o'clock. We also got Martin Hamlet that just won a split decision over Corey Hendricks. So there you guys go. Other news that just popped up while we were live. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira officially set for UFC 281 headlining MSG.
Wow.
That's November 12th. So big fight there. Very much looking forward to that.
That'll be a fun one. That's the same card as the Poirier Chandler fight, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
that'll be a fun one. I look forward to
it. You know, MSG, they always got to go big, so
they have to.
I'm very happy with that one.
It already looks better than the 279 card.
Yeah, 279 is dog shit. Let's be honest. 279 is horrible. All right, let's move on to this next fight. Another Ultimate Fighter finale. We got Zach Pauga coming in against Mohammed Usman. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 265 for Pauga, plus 225 for Mohammed Usman. I'll let you kick this one off, my friend. What are you thinking about these heavyweights? What could you tell us from the show? Was there anything that stood out from the show for you about these guys, non-fighting wise? And then ultimately, who do you think ends up getting their hand raised here?
Yeah, let me clarify. When I said that this was really painful to watch Ultimate Fighter, it was more so the heavyweight fights. The women's fights are actually decently entertaining throughout. But you know what? I don't think that this is a fight that earns as much merit as it should. I think that Usman could have lost his first fight that he had in the house. I know you watched that one. I don't know what his opponent was doing there. Anyways, point being, the main takeaway from this is Mohammed Usman is not Kamaru Usman. And that's what I keep telling everybody, because I don't think he's that good. I think he's a fighter who has a lot to work on, has a lot of skills that he could probably harness into being a better fighter. But I don't think he's necessarily has too much promise, especially his division. But on the other hand, we have a guy in Zach Pauga, and he's got the Greg Hardy base. He's got the old NFL player turned UFC fighter, relatively new, under a 2-year career. And I do think that he has decent explosiveness, but I don't see that same finish ability from him. I think he's going to have more speed. He's going to have decent wrestling upside here, but I don't necessarily see him being a huge dominant winner to the point where his price tag is earned. To me, he's a minute winner. He's a guy who's won 4 to 5 decisions. And it's really just a weird fight. I think that if we look at the overall better fighter, sure, it's Pauga. But I also have to take in that I think Okay, sorry, a lot of emotions coming to my head right now. This fight is all over the place for me. I expected Muhammad Usman to be a lot bigger than he was at the weigh-ins. I think that Zach Pauga necessarily isn't the biggest heavyweight. I think he could necessarily even go down if he wanted to. And I think that he is overall a guy who needs work at heavyweight. I think Muhammad Usman is going to be the more powerful guy with more finish equity and the guy who go out there and win a fight here despite the big price tag. With that being said, the most likely outcome for me is going to be a Zach Pauga decision. I do think he has the ability to go out there, make it a boring fight at range, even throw in a few takedowns if he wanted to, just use that speed, that athleticism that he does have. And I do think that's the way to go. I can't get there on his money line. If anything, I'd maybe even bet the over. I don't think it's too pretty because it is minus 120 now or something like that. Not something that's too appealing to me. This fight as a whole isn't very pretty, and it's also just a lot of rambling for me to say there are better spots on this card.
These guys are, they're not your conventional heavyweights, because we do see them go to a decision more often than not, because they don't mind taking that slow-paced striking approach that will likely get them the decision if should it reach the judges' scorecards. But I do see more from Pauga that I do like from Muhammad Usman. Right, it seems like Usman has had his cardio issues, right? We saw it in the fight before he made it to the house against Brandon Sales in the PFL, where he gets gassed out and gets finished in the third round. His cardio looks good when he can dictate the pace. Brandon Sales took it into his hands that night and dictated the pace, and which is why he was able to get him out of there. And Pauga, in my opinion, could be the guy to do the same thing, that he dictates the pace, puts a little bit of a pressure on Usman with, takedown attempts, level changes, combinations, footworks, pressure, and that could ultimately get him a finish later in this fight. But I'm just not 100% sold that he'll be able to do that. You talked about him possibly going down in weight. He is a light heavyweight, right? Like, he is a light heavyweight fighter. He used to fight at 205. I believe his last fight, or second last fight before coming into the house, was against former UFC middleweight Marcus Perez, and he goes out there and actually wins that fight via decision. His main training partner, Curtis Razor Blades, could be doing much worse than that, right? Like, to be in and out, in and out of the gym with that guy every single day, I think is very helpful for him. I know they've been training side by side for a long time now, especially, taking trips to go train at other gyms and get other looks at times. So that's very helpful as well. I like what we're getting with the kid, but again, the price tag is just a little bit too wide for me here. And even the method of victory is a little bit questionable for me too. Does he wear him out and get him out of there early? Does he just lay and pray his way to a decision here? Like, it's absolutely possible. Any of those scenarios. This is probably the most volatile fight in terms of the method of victory from either side. But I do think we see Pauga get his hand raised here. Decision is probably the spot that I'd be leaning on most. Just a better overall fighter, right? Muhammad Usman, I think within the next 2 or 3 years, he'll likely be cut from the UFC. I just don't think he's that good at all. He tries to be a slow-paced striker. That's not going to cut it in the heavyweights top 15. Guys will be able to get him out of there. Guys will be able to wrestle him. Guys will be able to put a pace on him and get him out of there. Like, imagine what Sergey Spivac would do to Muhammad Usman, right? Not good.
Wouldn't be pretty.
It would not be pretty at all. So yeah, me and Gordo on the same side here with Zach Pauga, but realizing that the line is just a little bit too wide to have any true action on this spot. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. And I am so glad that it's in the co-main event slot, because the first iteration of this main card actually had it before the tough finale fights. That would have been an absolute spit in the face to these guys, especially with the type of fight that I expect this to be. We got Vicente Luque coming in as a minus 190 favorite, plus 160 to return on Jeff Neal. Very fun fight between two strikers who have different styles, right? We like to see Jeff Neal go out there and try to keep it clean, try to stay disciplined and be the more technical fighter, whereas Luque, solid technical striker, don't get me wrong, excuse me, but loves the wars, loves dragging guys into violent spots and just making it a hellacious fight. Can Jeff Neal survive that? Possibly, but I think his best work is going to be able to come when he can counter Luque effectively here. Now, Luque gets hit a lot, right? I think it's 5.19 strikes absorbed per 15 minutes. On the flip side for Jeff Neal, he gets hit slightly more than he actually lands, but a lot of that has to do with this fight with Wonderboy Thompson, where he literally got outstruck almost 3-1 in that fight. So not a good look from him there. Luque, got outstruck himself by Wonderboy Thompson, but Jeff Neal had to endure 2 more rounds of it than what Vicente Luque had to against Wonderboy Thompson. Luque obviously has the BJJ advantage, but he doesn't look to assert that at all. Like the last time he goes out there and shoots takedown with intent was against Leon Edwards, and that was way back in March of 2017. Since then, he hasn't even attempted a takedown. Right? If we remember, the Michael Chiesa submission victory that he got was initiated by Michael Chiesa. Chiesa pretty much put himself into that Darce choke, and he got choked out in that spot. So not a good look for Chiesa there. But again, I am not expecting this fight to be in the grappling realm at all. I think it's going to be a striking battle. And I think even though Luque will likely have the advantage in terms of output, I think it's going to be Neal that lands the better and more damaging strikes, the more effective strikes. So which is why I'm actually leaning on the Jeff Neal side here. I took a shot on him at plus 160 as an underdog, likely being my dog of the night play. I got 1.9 units at plus 160. Again, I think he's the better technical striker as long as he can remain disciplined and as long as Saif Sayud and those guys down in Fortis MMA have come up with a proper enough game plan for him and really studying Luque's game, seeing where he has his openings. Because yes, he can be hit, but if Jeff Neal hits you, I think it's definitely more than if a guy like Brian Barberena is hitting Vicente Luque. And last point I'll make about this: wasn't that long ago that Mike Perry went to a split decision with Vicente Luque, and you're getting Jeff Neal, much better striker than Mike Perry, maybe not as reckless as Mike Perry, but that could help him here being the safer and cleaner guy. And that will likely allow him to land the bigger and better strikes. So I'm expecting it to be a war, but I think that Jeff Neal's power will show off here. And, we're going to see Luque absorb a lot of strikes on this in this fight, in my opinion. Close fight, which is why I'll take the dog, but I do still like Jeff Neal to win this fight outright. I'm still stumped in terms of whether he wins this fight by KO because Luque never been knocked out in his professional MMA career. 30 professional fights, never been knocked out. But then on the Jeff Neal side, very heavy hitter. Like it's tough to see which outcome will come to fruition, but I still end up on the Jeff Neal side here. What are you thinking here? It seems like you had a bit of a surprised look on your face when I said that I went with Neal because I have been seeing a lot of love for Vicente Luque during my live streams, during my Twitter scrolling. What side are you on here? What are you liking here?
You know what? I'm against you. I am on the Luque side here, but you're saying it with a lot of conviction. I really respect the takes here, and I do think that it's going to be a very close fight. I'm not going to talk too much about the line because I was able to get some CLV and really beat the line movement, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But I do have a bet on Vicente Luque. I do think that this is a spot where I think he has again the more certainty from his side, in my opinion. I think that I get the shot. I get the love for Jeff Neal, but in order for him to win, I think he's going to have to fight a lot more perfect game. I don't think he can make the same mistakes that someone like Vicente Luque is able to make. Luque is a guy who puts a lot on the line because he has no striking defense. He walks forward head high and he absorbs a lot of the punches, but he's a violent man. I like his pressure here. I like his ability to go out there and threaten the ground game here that Jeff Neal is probably going to stay away from. And I think that he's able to pressure his way to land those more impactful shots. I think that he has the huge advantage level of competition. And it's not long ago that he was next in line to fight for the belt, right? I think that he is a guy who has the opportunity to go out there and win a pretty fun fight. With that being said, it's going to be an absolute war. And when I think of wars with Vicente Luque, I think of a guy who's always coming forward, always putting on a pace, and able to withstand a lot of damage. And I think he's able to withstand a lot of damage here and work his way forward, always pushing forward. I really like me Vicente Luque as a fighter in general. I have had problems fading him in the past because I do think that his ground game could be worked on in terms of being control wrestled. With that being said, he has a lot better level of competition. I think he has decent power in his own right. And I think that when you have a guy who's always coming forward, a guy who's going to close a distance, take away those kicks from Jeff Neal, where he does have a lot of his power, and withstand a lot of the hands of steel power of Jeff Neal, I think you're going to have to take the shot on Vicente Luque, in my opinion. The wins for Jeff Neal aren't too appealing in the first place. Okay, he beat Bilal Muhammad, and we'll give him that too. But Nico Price and Mike Perry, I do think that the split decision over Ponzinibbio was a questionable win as well. I do think that all in all, it's going to be a really fun fight. I'm going to take the more versatile fighter and the more durable fighter, in my opinion, in Vicente Luque, to go out there, pressure forward, land a few strikes, and just make it a really fun affair.
One last thing I do want to say about this matchup is the everybody, like, I'm not saying that you're in this camp. You made some good points about Vicente Luque in terms of winning this fight, but the one thing that I see a lot of people harping on is that 2-fight losing skid that Jeff Neal was on, right? Wonderboy Thompson and Neil Magny, and a lot of people laughing at the Neil Magny one, saying, "Look, Neil Magny's getting finished left, right, and center nowadays. How could you bet on a guy that lost to that Neil Magny? Neil Magny is a very tough out for anybody, especially if you don't have a decided grappling advantage over him. He can put together, solid combinations, good pressure, cardio. He's just a workhorse when he gets in there and he's able to put that pressure on his opponents. We see guys that have success against Neil Magny get him to the ground and keep him still. They can't keep him still on the feet, right? Michael Chiesa has tremendous success keeping him on the ground. Shavkat Rakhmonov takes his neck home with him, right? Like, those are the guys that are going to beat him. Of course, Jeff Neal was going to have issues with Neil Magny that night. I even bet on Neil Magny for that specific reason. I knew that Neil Magny would be able to come out with his hand raised. And Wonderboy Thompson, completely difficult stylistic matchup for almost anybody. We saw Vicente Luque even struggle with Wonderboy Thompson. So I think people are being too harsh on Jeff Neal because of those two losses. And I think that still might be trickling into the head of a lot of people if they just go out there and blindly bet Vicente Luque. I know you didn't blindly bet Vicente Luque based off of that. You made some very good points, so I completely understand that point of it. But again, going into that Wonderboy fight, this guy was a pick'em against Wonderboy Thompson. That's how hyped he was in the past. And now, obviously, we see the colors a little bit more, but I still think he is capable of high-level wins, and I think he'll remind people tomorrow night when he goes out there and beats Vicente Luque.
For sure. It's going to be a really fun fight into, and whenever I do these bets, I think like most of us do, we create our own lines and we see how different we are from the line is itself. And I did cap Vicente Luque at around that -190, -200 point. And I got him at -155. So I'm really confident with the way I did snag that. It's a lot hard for me to get to him as he is now, but I do think he's a guy who has multiple paths to victory, and I think is going to be a really fun fight nonetheless. If I did want to hedge out of it, I definitely can right now. But either way, give me a fun fight. That's all I want to see. Co-main event. I don't think these guys can disappoint, and I think it's gonna be a great scrap.
Yeah, PG saying he went big on Wonderboy versus Jeff. I was right there with you,
So
my
did
friend.
Yep.
I was pretty big on Wonderboy myself that night. I think people are a little bit too high on Jeff Neal at that point. Again, I think he is capable of high level wins, but stylistically speaking, Wonderboy Thompson and Neil Magny are two of the hardest guys to game plan for, especially if you don't have grappling upside on your side. All right. Let's move on to the main event here. Once again, shout out to everybody in the live chat. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Give my guy GordoGambles a follow as well. Link to his Twitter page is in the description below. I promise you'll be blessing your timeline with some info nuggets that you guys would be very thankful for. So please do give him that follow. All right, let us move on to the main event here, which is taking place in the light heavyweight division. We got a scrap between Thiago Santos, who's a plus 255 dog here, coming in against the guy who the show was built around, as my guy John Anik likes to say, -305 on Jamal Hill. Now, interesting matchup here, which I'm actually going to let you kick off, my friend. I'll let you kick off this breakdown. What are you liking here? What are your thoughts? You think there any value on Thiago Santos as a big dog, or do you think that Jamal Hill continues his winning ways?
Yeah, I'm going to call myself a DraftKings player. As a DraftKings player, seeing a Thiago Santos main event isn't as appealing as always, but facing a guy in Jamal Hill, we know that Sweet Dreams is going to bring the heat, and it's going to be a very fun fight. I don't think that he's capable of a boring fight. So I love me some Jamal Hill in the spot. This is actually the second leg to that Terrence McKinney fight doesn't start round 3 parlay. I got Hill. I got fight doesn't start round 3. That's the way I'm going. I think that Hill is a guy who has a lot of upside in the division. Not only do I think he's going to have a power and striking advantage over a guy in Thiago Santos, who I have seen some regression from, but I also think he's going to have more volume and even a grappling upside here. I think Jamal Hill has a lot of assets to his game that we haven't fully seen in the UFC yet. What we've seen from him is power and finishes, and I do like that. And there's a guy who I really can get behind. What I like from him, though, is I think he wants it more at this stage. Thiago Santos isn't a guy who I see with too much will anymore. He's a guy who's content with striking from range for 5 minutes. He doesn't care about going out there and looking like a performance of the night kind of guy. He's okay with just trying to win the fight to his best ability. And I think that if he stays in range with Jamal Hill's boxing chops are really going to get the best of him. For me, I think that Jamal Hill is a guy who I'm targeting on DraftKings. He's a guy who I'm okay with parlaying because I do think he is able to close that line value. And it's really hard for me to see a win for Thiago Santos. I think that if we look at who has more finish upside here, sure, he may be the hammer, but we've seen decent durability from Hill. We've seen heart. We've seen good defensive tendencies. And we haven't seen the same explosiveness from Moreta as we used to. Thiago Santos really hasn't looked the same recently. And I think that although it is UFC and anything could happen, any knockout could come change the outcome of a fight, I don't necessarily see him having that same knockout upside as he's used to in the past. And therefore, can I trust Thiago Santos to win a slow decision? Can I trust him to go out there and win minutes? And I don't think I can. I don't think he's going to be throwing more volume. I don't think he's going to be getting the better of the exchanges. And I do think that Jamal Hill probably gets him out of there early. So it's another one of those spots where I'm on the favorite. I'm on Jamal Hill. I think he has good upside in this fight. I think he probably gets him out of there. And for me, he's a great target on DraftKings as well.
Yeah, I am on your side in terms of taking the Hill side as well. But I think we need to go back and just remember one thing, right? Like, it's MMA at the end of the day. Thiago Santos hasn't looked the greatest in his recent form, but he's got to know that, like, either his job is on the line at a certain point, or that he's going to have to go out there and start producing results. Otherwise, people are going to start to forget him, and he starts to lose his leverage in terms of like negotiating with the UFC whenever he gets his new contract. So at a certain point, we're going to see that fire of Thiago Santos come back. Will that happen tonight? I don't know. Tomorrow night. I'm not sure, but at a certain point, it has to come back, right? And he's getting up there in age. He's 38, 39 years old. It's not too, if you want to take the age approach here, everything is in Jamal Hill's favor. But again, he does have that big knockout power. He is, in my opinion, the better technical striker when he actually lets his strikes go. How well are those leg kicks if he looks to start throwing his leg kicks again? How are those going to impact Jamal Hill? Because we saw them affect him a little bit against OSP, but we know OSP slows down and then he eventually gets smothered and eventually finished by Jamal Hill midway through that second round. But what if Jamal doesn't get Thiago Santos out of there? How is he going to deal with the leg kicking game of Thiago Santos? And another thing, like, I get it. David Branch put out Thiago Santos, but I think that was more so of a surprise finish than anything, right? Like, I think everybody and their mother expected David Branch to try to get that fight to the ground and try to submit him, but he just threw hella power, and I don't think Thiago Santos was ready for it. He got hit with the shot that he didn't see coming, and he went out. He is fully expecting Jamal Hill to go out there and try to take him out. And this might be one of those spots where his chin holds up. He is not fragile like Johnny Walker is, right? He is not fragile like possibly even Jimmy Groot was. All the finishes, most of the finishes I've been seeing from Jamal Hill are like accumulative combination finishes, not one punch KOs, other than the Johnny Walker fight, right? Like, he is not that heavy power striking kind of guy. Exactly. Everybody remembers that knockout there. So if he can't find the chin of Thiago Santos, and even if he does, it's not guaranteed that he's going to go down like a sack of bricks. It's possible that he can endure those shots. And this fight might go into the second round. This fight might go into the third round. What I think is going to be the ultimate downfall of Thiago Santos is Jamal Hill's body work. The guy works the body so well. He puts combinations together so well. His kicks to the body are amazing as well. Like, all these things, add them up and, give it around 2 rounds, maybe even 3 rounds to settle in, then I think he eventually fully puts his foot on the gas and gets Thiago Santos out of there probably in the 3rd or 4th round. I'm not sold it's going to happen in the 1st round, as a lot of people expect. Yes, Thiago Santos hasn't looked the greatest as of yet, but he is not this guy going out there getting knocked out left, right, and center. He still has solid durability, took some big shots, although maybe not many from Johnny Walker, but still managed to, keep standing and keep going forward. Yeah, all I'm saying, don't fully count out Thiago Santos. I think he can make things live if his durability holds up. But at the end of the day, I'm still ending up on the Jamal Hill side here. Hopefully we get a smart, disciplined approach from him with his striking, and he gets Thiago Santos out of there probably in the 3rd or 4th round. All right. That is a wrap on the breakdowns here. Let's end off the podcast here with lock of the night plays, or most confident plays on the card for myself and Gordo. I'll start things off. I'm going to stick with my guns on Brian Battle. I got in early at minus 230 this week. Obviously, not a lot of people want to pay that minus 300 chalk on him. Maybe parlay him with the fight doesn't go to decision, fight does not start round 3 of the McKinney Gonzalez fight, or even Sergey Spivac. I think both those spots are prime as well as the Oleksiejczuk and Sam Alvey fight to not go to decision. So giving you guys a couple parlay pieces as well, especially if you don't want to pay that chalk on Brian Battle. I was more than happy to at minus 230 earlier this week. But again, you guys are not getting that number at this time. So I get it. Gordo, what are you thinking, my friend? What's the most confident play you got on the card for tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think that kind of, I don't want to say I messed up, but my lock of the night play I submitted for the contest is one I absolutely love. But if I was going to give another one, that Spivac and Sakai not to go the distance is one I really like as well. I do like Jamal Hill as a parlay piece, but the lock of the night play for me this week is, according to the chat, maybe a bit controversial. According to people I've seen on Twitter, a bit controversial, but I'm taking that fight doesn't go with Oleksiejczuk and Sam Alvey. That is the one I'm going to take. Minus 160 fight not to go the distance. I do think this is a spot where Mikhail is able to wear him down over the stretch. And originally when I taped this, I'm like, okay, Sam Alvey's going to have the ability to go out there, and his path to victory is a right hook. He's fighting for his job back up against the wall. Against a guy coming down a weight class. That was my reasoning. That being said, Sam Alvey is actually one who looked weaker on the scales. Give me Mikhail Oleksiejczuk knockout early on. I don't care. Give me violence in that spot. I do think that their styles make it so that the most likely path to victory is that knockout. So give me that. Fight doesn't go up minus 160.
I also believe you guys can get fight to end via knockout on FanDuel at minus 145. So that covers both sides as well. If fight doesn't go to decision, last night's always minus 175, so not too far off there. But yeah, I am kind of surprised at the amount of love that I'm seeing for the fight to go to decision through the live chat, through the Twitter timelines, all that stuff. Hopefully me and you are on the right side this weekend and we see some violence in that spot. All right, Gordo, before we get on out of here, I'm going to give you one last opportunity to plug any and everything you would like for the fans here, where they can find you, what work you're putting out, and where they can find that as well. Please let them know.
Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, GordoGambles at GamblesGordo on Twitter. That is where you can find all of my work. I'll be actually posting my plays probably shortly. I got a nice little slate where I'm looking forward to posting all that stuff. But in terms of my content, in terms of the videos I'm posting at Plays and Fade Sports on YouTube, the Plays and Fade Sports YouTube channel is where I post all of my content, full card DFS breakdowns, Dana White Contender Series breakdowns, all of that stuff. A little prop drop for Prize Picks, even though we can't even play it because why not? And all that stuff there. I have all my content at Plays and Fade Sports. I also commented that I'm going to UFC 280 or 278 in the chat as well. That's where you can find all my stuff. In terms of me, if you guys want to know anything, I love answering DMs. I love talking fights. So if you ever want to hop into the DMs, at GamblesGordo on Twitter is where to do it. I appreciate you inviting me on the show. I had a lot of fun breaking it down. It's been an absolute pleasure talking fights, and good luck to all your plays this weekend.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. It was a great time chopping it up with you as always. It's always a little bit extra special when I'm able to get a fellow Canadian on the show as well.
Sure.
And yeah, it's always great to do that. Last question here from my guy, Nick Sisson. My thoughts on battle after the weigh-in. I'm just about to post the timestamps on this as soon as I wrap up, but please go back and listen to the breakdown that we did for that fight. I think we both went a solid 5 to 7 minutes on that, as well as giving our thoughts on the weigh-ins. So please check that out on the replay. Timestamps are going to go up in the next 10 minutes, so you don't have to scroll through it to find it, but you'll eventually find it. All right, Gordo, once again, appreciate you doing the show as always. Appreciate everybody hopping on and joining on the live stream as well. If you're listening to this after the fact, drop a comment below. Let me know what your favorite spot is on the card this weekend. If you're listening on audio or iTunes, make sure you rate and review as well. That's a big way for us to get into the algorithm and all that stuff. Make sure you guys do that. And then also follow my guy, GordoGambles, on Twitter at GamblesGordo. He's switching it up on us there, but
I mess myself up sometimes.
There you go. Again, even if you don't want to type it in, you guys can just hit the description below down here, and you guys will be able to find the link to his Twitter page there as well. All right. Good luck to everybody on their bets. I will be back tomorrow for the 1 p.m. Eastern for the Fight Day live chat. And good luck on your bets, folks. We'll see you guys next week.